Welcome to the How Did They Do It Real Estate Podcast. Have you ever wondered how people succeed in real estate and what steps they took to get there? If so, this podcast is for you. Your hosts, Sayla and Eileen Prack, interview top experts in the real estate community to share with you their real estate journey and how they achieved massive success. Our goal is to provide you with valuable real estate resources and to help you apply it to your own real estate goal. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the How Did They Do It Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Prack, and today our guest is Jason Mittman, and he's the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of Only Epic, and he has an incredible background and his experience with commercial real estate investing, public speaking, writing, and business coaching, and additionally, he is a competitive athlete and mountaineer. So, Jason, thank you so much for being on the show today. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much. So Jason, could you start off by sharing a little bit more about your background and, how you got started with real estate investing?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. I started in real estate in 1989, 88 or 89, and I had a lawn mowing business in high school and was fortunate enough that one of the guys who I went to go bid on his house turned us down. We didn't have the skill the guys who worked for me in high school, we all cut grass, and this guy, Southern living kind of yard, and he turned me down for hiring when I told him we didn't have the skill, but he was impressed by my honesty and integrity, which is very important, obviously, in business, in real estate. And he asked me to call him if I ever needed anything, and he gave me his card, and I called him, and I asked him, as only an 18-year-old kid would be dumb enough to ask, how do you make your money? That was my brilliant question. And he was silent. And he said, are you asking how I earn a living or how I'm wealthy? I said, they're the same thing. He goes, no, they're not. Be in my office at this time on this date. And he was a very prominent lawyer, tax and estate planning lawyer. And he was wealthy from investing in real estate. And he took me under his wing and taught me. He mentored me for over a decade. And that's how I got thrown in. And at 18 years old, working for a real estate mogul.
Wow. So if you can remember, how did he explain to you the difference between how he made his living versus how he became wealthy and how he defined that?
I remember it exactly. So I came into this big giant law office. It was on 2 floors of the KCI Tower in San Antonio, Texas. And this was in the heart of what's called the RTC days, which stood for the Resolution Trust Corporation. In the 80s, the tax law changed, and we had a recession that made 2008 look like kindergarten. So in 2008, we lost a couple dozen banks. In the 86 through 89 period, we lost a few thousand banks. So all the banks in the buildings were empty, KCI Tower being one that was taken back by the RTC. And if you had money, and that's key to remember, you could do anything you wanted. It was sort of like, yeah, you can buy it. You actually have the money to buy it because no banks were lending. And I came into his office, in this big law office, and it was bustling, and go into his corner office, and he looks at me and had this flowing gray hair with the gold 80s glasses, right? And a gold chunky watch, and a thin tie, and all. And he said, and I had a suit from Goodwill, literally, and shoes from Goodwill, and I ironed it best I could, and I used a Sharpie to make my shoes look good for the meeting. And he said, I make my money as a lawyer. I'm wealthy from real estate. Do you want to learn? And he quickly explained that a job that you go to, whether you own the business or not, is one you are entrusted to run that requires your active attention. In real estate, once you get it running, it works for you. You still have to work. There's a great book by a guy named Keith Cunningham called The Road Less Stupid. He describes it as a merry-go-round, right? And if you fill the merry-go-round with people, it's the same with real estate. It takes massive effort to get any movement of that merry-go-round. And that takes massive effort to get it going. But once it's spinning fast, like real estate, once you build a system and build a team and build a great reputation, all you got to do is keep going like this. And the momentum that you took all that effort on the front end goes much greater versus working every day. You got to push and start the merry-go-round. I shouldn't say real estate is work, but a regular quote unquote job.
Got it. No, that's fantastic. And, as an 18-year-old, wanting to even have that inquisitive nature about wanting to find out how people are able to get to where they are, not a lot of people are bold enough to ask that question either, but that changed the trajectory of your life.
Absolutely. 100%. I have no idea where I'd be without him as a great mentor, but I certainly know I wouldn't be where I am today. And I'm grateful for it.
So, after you learned the difference and you met with him, what did you do to get the ball rolling? And how did you, start to learn to build your wealth at such a young age?
So he said, "Do you want to learn?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Will you do anything I tell you to?" And I said, "Yes." Now, thinking about it, being locked in the corner office of an old gray haired man and saying, "I'll do whatever you tell me." When you look today, he's probably like, but he was a great man. And he said, "Okay." And he was very theatrical. And then he literally had hidden behind the wet bar in his office a push broom. He goes, "In the corner of the office, there's a push broom. Here's an address. You need to go sweep this warehouse because I'm showing it to a potential tenant. It needs to look brand new. It needs to be the most important job you've ever done because right now it is." It was Mr. Miyagi, from Karate Kid. And then it was paint the pilings. And then it was do this. And then it's, okay, now you know how to do it. Now you need to hire a crew to care for the properties for you. And they better do a better job than you did, or you're going to fire them. And then I'm going to fire you. And it was this kind of this tough love. And then it was, this is a balance sheet, and this is a profit and loss statement. And this is what matters to a bank. And this is what matters to you. And they're not necessarily the same thing, by the way, because everybody has their own assessments. And this is a lease. And this guy had a master's in tax law from NYU. He would not let me use his lease form until I debated every single paragraph of his 52-page lease. So like 6 months later, right? But that's how it was. He explained to me financing and leasing and maintaining a building and, working with architects and renegotiating. And it just, there's so many pieces if you're in commercial real estate that you have to juggle. And if you outsource them, you still better know. So at least you can explain it to the teams that are working with you. And that was my education.
Wow, what an education.
It was amazing.
I'm curious, did you ever get a chance to ask him why he decided to take that leap of faith with you and give you that education and give you the opportunity to learn underneath him and take you under his wing versus going out to find somebody to do the same type of work?
That's a great question. And I think there's a variety of answers. I think we were both probably looking, the universe was calling at that time. I don't think anybody had the courage. The Hebrew word is chutzpah, to go and make an ask like that. And, it was apparent, obviously, that this kid, me, was running a business of lawn cutters and was telling the truth. And I think it all just fit together, and frankly, I think if you ask, the universe will respond. If you don't ask, or you say, I can't do it, the universe will respond. It's like Henry Ford said, right? Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So I asked, and I bet no one had asked before, frankly. And I'm sure there was timing. And I had been mowing a lot of lawns at that time for foreclosed houses. And I remember looking at them, even as a kid in high school, thinking, but if you just fixed them up and bought them cheap, couldn't you sell them and make money? As a kid, and this was before the internet, there weren't a lot of resources to think that through. But my gut instinct said, there's got to be a way to turn something that doesn't look good when there's other things around it that look good to make money. And it just kind of fed my hunger.
So what was the driving factor behind continuing to work with him, continue to learn and try to absorb as much as you can from this teacher that the universe had provided to you?
He was just a magnificent man. And and it worked both ways. He was going through a difficult divorce at the time of a wife of 30 years. The RTC days were terrible on everybody. And he had this young man, me, who was extraordinarily loyal, was extraordinarily hungry to learn, and performed, and a very hard worker. And I think and had integrity. And if you add that formula, you can do an awful lot. It's not complicated, and that formula still exists, and it still matters. And took me under his wing, and it was a wonderful, almost a father-son, not almost, it truly was a father-son relationship of great value to me and to him. So it works. It always works both ways, right? So if somebody were to come to you and they wanted to learn from you and they were young and you felt you could add value, it feeds your ego as well. You get, compensation is not just dollars. It can feed your ego, it can be love, it can be satisfaction, all these things that can compensate. And so I compensated him in some ways and he compensated me in others, and it was a great fit.
So then after you had learned what you could from him and you got the ball spinning and the wheels rolling, what did you do to start building up your own foundation from there?
It's a great question. First thing I did is I decided I was going to try flipping a house. This is in the mid 90s. I mean, this is before flipping houses were cool and sexy. And I walked into early 90s, mid 90s, Norwest Financial. I said, I buy houses and I buy and close quick. I can buy out cash and close super quick. Do you have any? And they had a condo in North Austin. God, I wish I still owned that condo. Can you imagine? I got it for $20,000 in Austin, Texas.
Wow.
Right? You couldn't buy the parking space for 20. You couldn't buy the mailbox for 20. And I said, okay. And I walked out and I thought, pardon my language, may I swear? I said, shit, where am I going to come up with $20,000? That was the universe of money to me. I barely had, my car. And so at the time, credit card checks were much more usable. And I took the credit card checks and I deposited them into my bank account. And then I used a bank check and I bought that condo for 20 grand. And I had no money to fix it up. So I went and did all the work myself. And I would buy things at Home Depot, or I'd buy them at Habitat for Humanity. And I'd work until I couldn't physically work anymore. And I'd sleep on the floor of the condo. And I'd wake up and I kept working. And that's, if you in the excuses I hear that are so prevalent of I can't because, they're truly just excuses. You can have excuses and you can have results. You can't have both, right? If you were to tell to me, Jason, nobody will believe in me. I can't make an offer because I can't find a good deal. Oh, really? How many offers have you made today? I made one. Well, HGH Investments, Ben Kogut's firm, who you interviewed,
Yep.
They look at about 1,500 deals a day. They make about 500 offers a week. They maybe only get one and only close on 10 of the one, 10 out of 100. Okay, so that's a statistical anomaly. Or you just work hard and you make it happen, because it's really not a statistical anomaly. All it is you got to ask enough. So the excuses just don't work. I didn't have money. I've made it work. I couldn't afford a crew. I figured it out and did it myself. So I took that money and flipped it into another one, into another one, into another one, and eventually bought a full city block on Highway 290 in a town called Giddings, 45 minutes to the east of Austin. And while I was driving out there, I got scared and I pulled over and I called Mr. Jory, my mentor, and said, I'm not going to make the offer. He walked me through it for days. We role played. He said, why not? Did you get in a wreck? I said, no, they won't accept it. And he goes, you schmuck. It's not up to you to say no. It's up to them. Go make the offer. And I made it. They took the offer. And then things started really snowballing from there.
Wow. It's so interesting how important it is to have somebody in your life like that, to be able to push you and to elevate you and to really challenge you to do things that you yourself are holding yourself back from, to be able to accomplish these things, because you're telling yourself they're not going to accept the offer, but really it's just a story that you're telling yourself. You don't know what they're going to say.
That's right. So our brain processes somewhere between 20,000 and 65 to 75,000 thoughts a day, depending on who you ask in the research studies. And over half of those are negative thoughts. So let's go on the low end. Let's say it's 20,000. Okay, so that means 10,000 thoughts a day, you're telling yourself something negative. And you speak to yourself in a way you wouldn't allow your children to speak to you the way that the things you tell yourself, and I don't even know you wouldn't let, your kids would be in serious trouble if they spoke to you that way, and your friends and everyone. And that applies to why so few people get deals done in real estate. They're afraid because they're negative talk. So if you have a great mentor, you have some integrity, and you push past that fear, you'll get there eventually. It's not easy, but that's why you get rewarded, because it's not easy.
So then for you, while also having a great mentor by your side as well, what other factors helped you continue your journey to push past those fears that you continuously have throughout your entire career that you've had? There's plenty of ups and downs. There's a lot of challenges that you're facing. So what helped you move past all of that and to get you to where you are today?
I'm very formulaic. So to me, it's very easy. It either works on a spreadsheet or it doesn't. So there's a checklist, right? And so if you build systems and formulas, you can make the deal work. Now, it may not work at the ask price. Well, you just build the formula to say, I have to buy it for X, right? So that's one. The second thing is I'm extraordinarily competitive. I've got a long competitive athletic background, and I'm cursed by it, where I just, it's sort of like, well, what are you going to do when you have a deal done? I'm going to go do another deal. How are you going to celebrate? I'm going to go do another deal. And there's a few things you just cannot compromise on. You cannot compromise on your integrity. You cannot. There are two things critical to getting investors to work with you. Well, there's a lot, but there are two really critical things. One is, who's putting the deal together? Do they have integrity? Do they have a track record? And the second thing is, can the property sustain? If I get hit by the bus, can they save this property? All right. A bad group of owners can ruin a great property, and a great group of owners can fix a bad property. So, but you really want a great property and a great group of owners. And that's what keeps me going. And you keep looking. And the most important thing is you have to be willing to say no to almost every single deal that comes across your desk. Almost all of them. And when people are doing deals and you're not, you have to say, nope, not for me.
So what are some of the things that, immediately as you look at the different types of deals that come across your desk, across the different sponsors and everything like that, and, what are some of the things that automatically you write off and just say, no, I'm not going to do that one. I'm not even going to, I'm going to spend a couple minutes, take a look at it, but I'm going to write this one off. What are some of the top things that you kind of take a look at in the very beginning?
So now I'm obviously a much bigger firm. We have assets in 10 states at this point. So it's different. If you're asking me younger, there would have been a lot more yes saying. But now I want fewer, bigger deals. Different product types than I would have taken just anything before. So now it's specific asset classes, right? And I'm looking, how can I add value or improve it? Or is it strategic? So I might be willing to buy a low cap rate property that doesn't appear great if I'm trying to assemble a bunch of other things around it strategically. Things to say no to are pretty quickly too good to be true deals. The BS deals where you look at the numbers and realize that really looks good. You should have mentioned that it was all pro forma and you have no revenue and you're pretending you had revenue. So things like that, if you try to manipulate numbers, that's an immediate no. And unfortunately for me, because I'm stubborn, it's a permanent no. That mistake, if that's your track record, all you gotta do is make that with one-time track record with me. And then geography. There's certain states that I prefer, and obviously we prefer to work where we already have assets. It's a lot to open up a new area for us because of property management and maintenance and those things. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but you still find the deals if you look at enough of them.
If you're anything like Sayla and me and believe that real estate investing is a great way to create passive income and build long-term wealth, check out our free apartment syndication due diligence checklist for passive investors at bonavestcapital.com/checklist. Sayla and I created this checklist for ourselves as we evaluated different multifamily syndication opportunities as a passive investor. So we would love to share it with you so you can use it as a resource as well. Download your free copy today at bonavestcapital.com/checklist. So do you have an experience where you actually said yes, where you wish you kind of said no instead?
Oh, all the time. I make way more mistakes than I make successes. And we actually do something called an after action report after every deal, good or bad, to try to learn from our mistakes. And that's the other thing. If people are coming to you saying, I got a great deal, and you say, well, tell me about a mistake you've made, and they say, I've never made a mistake, that's a huge red flag. They're either the luckiest guy on the planet and they're due for one, or they're lying. Gosh, I mean, tons and tons of deals that I go, that was a stupid decision. Buying things, thinking I could add value faster than I could. We've owned probably 3 shopping centers in the past 5 years where I thought I could turn them around in 2 years, and they both took 4 and 5 years apiece. Getting too hungry. I call it hunter syndrome. I want that one because somebody else wants it, and you set aside some good judgment. And you can get around that through a good advisory team, but plenty of mistakes like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as you're saying no to all these deals, some people, especially the newer investors who are looking to get into real estate, they are seeing all these deals come in and they're hungry to get into a deal. And so how would you curb, by saying no, and then, so that they don't have that remorse later on, like, oh, I should have gotten to this deal, or I should have done this instead.
Numbers. That goes back to the spreadsheet in the advisors. Does it work on paper or not? Build a spreadsheet, see what your return is. If you have investors, make sure you're protecting them first. Your fiduciary is higher to them than your own money, first and foremost. And if you can protect them and the numbers work, great. If they don't, make the offer on the numbers that don't work. Here's the thing, make the offer. One thing is for certain, if you don't make the offer, the answer is no. You will for sure not get the deal if you don't make the offer. So just make the offer. It's okay if they go, that's the most insulting offer ever. They're not going to say that. Then you say, okay, thank you. You go on to the next deal. But make it on your terms. And if it's on your terms, you won't have that remorse one way or the other at the end of the day.
Yeah, I like that. The numbers don't lie, because you're looking at the spreadsheets, and as long as you follow the stories, you don't follow, there, you gotta remove the emotions part of it out as well. You got to follow what the numbers actually say on the paper.
100%.
So for you, how has real estate investing impacted your life so far? And also, what are you looking to do next?
It's the most amazing impact I could imagine. It's provided for me a lifestyle I never thought I would have. I get to climb mountains and take time off to go climb them. I get to pay for gear, and more importantly, I get to give meaningfully to philanthropic charities that I strongly believe in, which is incredibly important to me. That's kind of my next chapter, is more charitable giving, and I would say real estate has done that for me.
And what is the one thing that you know now about real estate that you wish you knew when you first started?
What a great question. I would say, if you're willing to be creative, you can get the deal done. I used to think a real estate sale is you accept my price or don't accept my price. I write you a check, or you write me a check. We go to the title company, we're done. That's a very narrow mindset. I learned through the Society of Exchange Counselors, there's a million ways to get a deal done. How about, well, I'll give it to you, but I don't have the cash, but I do have this piece of land in Baldwin, Michigan. If you'll take that as a down payment, then I'll do it. What? And they do deals. The Society of Exchange Counselors does deals like that every day. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars of deals a month. And so being creative can get you where you need to be.
And what is the one thing that sets the successful people apart in real estate investing?
They don't give up. Here's the thing. Let's say you and I convince you to go climb a mountain with me.
How tall is the mountain?
Tall. Miserably, painfully cold, tall, bad weather, horrible. We pull in the parking lot and it starts snowing, and there's other people around, and they're looking at us and we're looking at them. They say, let's go. And everybody takes off up the hill. About an hour later, we look around and half the people are gone. And I look at you and go, let's go. And now the weather really gets crappy and cold and windy, and your hands hurt, and you're tired, and all these problems start happening and you weren't expecting, like business. The weather goes bad, things happen you don't plan, and you look around and half the people are gone again. And I go, let's go. You can do this. We're trained for this. We have the tools to get the job done. We keep climbing the mountain. We get to the top through this horrible storm, and sunshine breaks out, and it's like you're looking into heaven at a whole mountain range. And it's the most glorious compensation you've ever had. And you look around and you realize, where'd everybody else go? You keep going. You build a team, you find resources, you learn from your mistakes, and you keep going.
So how about for those people who are unwilling to take or are hesitant to take that first step onto the mountain themselves? What are some of the things, that have helped you move forward or to motivate them to take those first steps? And maybe some action items that they can in order to prepare themselves for that trip?
That's a great question. That's a much longer conversation, but the first thing they should do is fear setting. I teach a class on this. They can get started by Tim Ferriss did a great TED talk on it. They can reach out to me and I'll send them the fear setting form and they can do it themselves. And they need to realize it's not going to look from adventure racing and mountain climbing. Unfortunately, I really do know what can kill you. Investing in real estate isn't it. And they need to remember the worst case is they're going to go broke. Well, lots of millionaires go broke and they tend to make it back and make a lot more the second time and third time around. So if you go broke, let me ask you a question. Let's say you invest in a deal and you go bankrupt. Sounds terrible, right? Have I taken away your knowledge?
Nope.
Have I taken away your family?
Nope.
Are your friends and family going to let you starve?
Oh, of course not.
Are they going to let you go without a roof over your head?
No.
Are you going to be even more angry and hungry to get a deal done because you went bankrupt?
Absolutely. It's redemption time.
So what'd you lose?
Nothing.
Nothing. That's right. And that's what they need to remember. The worst case scenario is they're still standing and they're still breathing and they still have another day to fight. And people will not in this country, if you have any friends, they will not let you go hungry. They will not let you go without a roof over your head. And frankly, with the way our economy is right now, you can go get a job. You can make it back. You will be okay if you keep fighting.
Thank you so much for that, Jason. That was extremely motivating and powerful because a lot of people don't think about that because that fear, exactly what you had mentioned, that fear sets in. And it's like when you actually put it on paper and you take a look at it and what's the worst thing that can happen, until we actually see it and we actually put it in front of our face, it's really difficult to comprehend and we make it much bigger than what it actually is.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you an example. I gotta go into my vitamin pack, see if I've got a vitamin. Yep. So ignore this. This is, I think, turmeric or something. Can you see the size of that?
Yep.
Okay. Can you see that in my hand?
Yes.
Okay. This is probably roughly the size of an almond. By any chance, do you know what the Latin word for almond is? This is a trick question. It's amygdala. Your brain has two amygdalas. They're called the amygdala because you have something in your brain the size of an almond. Look at that compared. So your brain, an adult brain, is approximately 3.3 pounds. But this can override a 3.3 pound supercomputer because this is what sends the fear signal and the fear chemical to fight or flight in your brain. We don't have to run from lions anymore. Stop letting something the size of an almond. Look, can you imagine this is controlling your whole brain? I feel like the Matrix. Take the red or the blue pill. It's probably a bad example.
In this case, the yellow pill.
The yellow pill, the turmeric pill. You just can't let it win. It's so tragic in this country how much we feed on fear. You have a choice. You don't have to watch the news and let that fear consume you. You can instead just get to work.
Jason, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing that amazing story and the incredible mindset that you have in getting past everything and to be able to share that with us today. I'm so grateful to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here.
So Jason, if our listeners really wanted to, find out more about what you're doing and reach out and maybe get a hold of that fear setting worksheet that you've been talking about, where's the best place that they can go?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Jason Mittman, Only Epic Holdings. They can also go to onlyepic.com. And I'm very poor at posting on Instagram, but there's JBow Mountain is the Instagram account.
Awesome. Well, Jason, I really appreciate your time today. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful for it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And thank you for listening to our podcast today, brought to you by Bonavest Capital. We would really appreciate it if you can go to iTunes right now and leave a rating and written review. Also, please don't forget to subscribe so you can always get the latest episodes. You can also connect with us on Facebook, How Did They Do It Real Estate. We'd love to hear your feedback and any topics that you're interested in for future episodes. Lastly, to learn more about us, you can go to bonavestcapital.com and fill out the Contact Us page so you can speak to us directly. Nothing on the show should be considered as specific personal advice. Please consult your legal, tax, and real estate professionals for individualized advice.